everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav, and you join us on the back of Sunderland's 2-0 win at Stadium of Light over Derby County. Another big win for Sunderland sends us back to the top of the Championship, and all is rosy in the garden once again, I think. Anyways, joining me is Chris. Hello, mate.
Hello, Gavin, and that's a bit nuts, isn't it? You know, just talking about those little things like unbeaten at home, top of the league. It's like, I don't know, we didn't expect it at the start of the season, and when you rattle them all off like that, it's pretty nice.
It is, yeah. We were talking at the match. Me mate was like, "How many games has gone now? Is it like 12, 13?" I was like, "No, 8." It's not quite there yet, but it is nice being top of the league, and this was the best way to respond to a defeat, really. You know, pretty routine, simple, straightforward, very, I don't know how you really say it, other than regimented, maybe. We were just very simple and straightforward, got the job done, came away with 3 points, got 2 goals, another clean sheet. And I did see that stat which said that this is now a club record. We've never started a season with 4 home clean sheets. You know, it's promising stuff, isn't it? Let's be honest, it is. You can't get away from how well we've started. And yeah, we've had a couple of setbacks away from home. But at home, we do look the dog's bollocks.
Promising, bloody hell. Never mind promising. But I mean, I want to come on. I want to have a chat with you about expectation later on. But in terms of that game, I mean, I love the manager's reaction afterwards because it was Sunderland AFC, and they said a control and performance, and I loved it because his first response was, "Well, no, it wasn't." Actually, and I love that because he essentially admitted to what we all saw. Because I mean, from my point of view, that was a hard fought win. I mean, you've just said routine, but I actually think that we had to battle for it, and we had to kind of really fight for that.
Derby were decent. Derby were decent. Don't get us wrong.
They'll be all right this season. They'll be easily mid-table.
Yeah, and
we had to dig in a little bit at times. And again, I mean, you come back to moments and, you know, crossroads in games, and, you know, we didn't start particularly well against Borough. We didn't start particularly well against Sheffield Wednesday. And again, actually, first 10, 15 minutes, we were pretty awful, if I'm honest. I mean, yeah. Look, we get into games, but this was like, well, that's just 3, including the Derby game that I've rattled off there, Borough and Sheffield Wednesday. There might be more people might point out, but early stages of games, we seemed to need, I think really early in the season, we came out the traps. And it's funny because we seem to have changed now where we're on the back foot a little bit first 10, 15 minutes. And it's a good sign from a team that has aspirations to do well at the top of the table that they don't play well. And at the end, you're saying a routine 2-0 win because it wasn't. But we're digging these out. We're kind of grinding them out. And the fact that, you know, we're seeing Derby looked like they knew what they were doing, and they looked, you know, they gave us a game and they were battling. They had a decent amount of possession, but they didn't carve any chances out. And I think that's kind of the secret to the impact of the new manager, that he's kind of got us into this structure where we just don't concede chances, especially at home. Like, teams have to really kind of break us down and side through us to make a clear-cut chance. And, I mean, early on they looked pretty dangerous, but after that, you couldn't really name a chance where you thought, they could have scored there. Patterson made a couple of routine saves, but we just looked solid. And again, like I said, these wins, that they go on moments, and we had to get back into the game, which isn't an easy thing to do when you start off slow, to then pick it back up again. And we did it, and we got it. Like you said, a lot of people will say a 2-0 routine win, but you could see by the manager's response, he didn't think it was like that.
Yeah, we grew into it. It was literally about 20 seconds before Bellingham's goal that turned me mate, and I was like, we grew into this game. We're getting better. we did start slowly. There's no getting away from that. I think, you know, we generally rely, particularly at home, on our full-backs to be pretty involved. And I thought Cirkin and Hume struggled early doors, which led to us struggling really to get forward. I thought, you know, there was times where normally you would be looking at Roberts and Mundle to drive at the man and stuff, but they do need that width and that support, and they weren't really getting it. Or if they were, it wasn't coming off for us to do. You know, they were playing the 5 and 10 yard passes to feet. They weren't maybe trapping the ball nice. It was like they were playing with a balloon at times, Cirkin and Hume. But look, we grew into the game, and I think by the time we did score, we were definitely on top. But you're right, Derby had moments. I think they probably did have a couple of half chances. I thought Patterson had there was that one where he made a cracking save, and then on the follow up the lad puts it in the side net. And they had a handful of they did have a handful of chances. as the game went on. And like I say, I think Derby will be all right. They look okay. Considering they made, did they make 4 or 5 changes from the last game? I thought they looked okay. They were decent. I thought Derby, when they had the ball at the back and when they had the ball in midfield, looked as good as us. As soon as they got that final third, it wasn't quite there. There was a couple of times where they put some really good balls into the box, and you can see why coming into the game, everyone was talking about, they're a threat from set pieces, they're really good in the air. I think that was our biggest downfall, and we're lucky we didn't get caught from it, because we gave quite a few free kicks and corners away around. I mean, particularly the free kicks around the box. I'm thinking that's the one place you don't want to be giving anything to them. They've shown already this season, and showed in League One last season, they're really good in those situations. So we had to defend well. I think particularly Patterson, Metham and O'Nien in them situations were outstanding. Yeah. Really, really good. Patterson's come under a bit of criticism recently, but I thought even the command of his area when we needed him to come and claim a ball which was dropping in the box, he got it every single time. And that hasn't been the case recently. But I get your thoughts on this before we dive into the game. The partnership between Metham and O'Nien, I'm really excited by this. Look, everyone knows, I'm one of Luke O'Nien's biggest fans. I don't think he gets enough praise, but it's great to see a bloke alongside him who does everything he does, because Metham's really good on the ball, but when we need him to defend, he's chucking himself in the way of things, he's blocking things, he's big, he's strong, he's imposing. They're quite similar. You know, where you've got other partnerships in our defence, you think Adji Elise, a very different type of player to Luke O'Nien. Dan Ballard, totally different type of defender to Luke O'Nien. In Metham and O'Nien, I think we've got two who are quite similar, and you can see how that might work over the long term. So yeah, grab your thoughts on that, because I genuinely think, that was maybe why, the biggest reason why we kept the clean sheet was that trio, I think. 100%.
And man of the match for me comes from like those three, one of those three. And it's funny because we're talking about our defensive record, and obviously we haven't conceded at home yet, but you're talking with those three, like in 09, he's been the constant in there. So he started off with Elise at the back with him. Then he had Ballard, and Ballard made that mistake, and then now Metham is in there. Metham, I don't know how you say it. I'm struggling with that one.
I keep wanting to say Metham.
Metham.
Trip over me on words.
Metham. Yeah. But yeah, so O'Nien's been that constant. So he's had 3 different partnerships this season, and we haven't conceded a goal at home. But I said on previous pods about we looked lopsided when he was at the back with Ballard, and I love Ballard. I mean, I love that kind of. I'm a big fan of that traditional defender who gets his foot in and trying to head the ball when it's on the floor and all that sort of stuff, which Ballard is, he's that type of defender. But now we've got 2 players now who can bring the ball out, and you saw it against Derby, that both players were, when they had space in front of them, could run into it. Whereas when Ballard gets it, he just gives it to O'Nien, and O'Nien does that. So the opposition front men, when they're trying to press, they get clued up to this, and all they do is make sure that basically O'Nien can't bring it out. And they sometimes allow Ballard to bring it out because they think, well, he's not particularly great at it, so let him do it. He might make a mistake. So there's that. But, that's in terms of bringing the ball out and getting us started. But you're looking at kind of the defending part of it. And like I said, right up top, I mean, the way we're defending at the minute is not just, we're not making last-ditch tackles and they're not flinging themselves in there. It's actually stopping the opposition from even getting a chance. Like, they're not getting close enough to get a chance. We'll mention that one later on when it was 2-0. That could have changed the last 20 minutes or so. But again, that's when Patterson picks up. And I think they had a couple of half chances in the first 10, 15 minutes. But other than that, I mean, they didn't look like they were going to get a sniff. And that's because we had players who knew what they were doing. They were in the right place at the right time. And when Patterson had to pull off a save, and I don't think he pulled off any worldies, he just did his job, I think, very, very well. But I think he did his job. And it's bizarre, isn't it? Because I think, we've talked about squad depth. And Elise and Ballard, I think, would get into most, if not all, back fours in the Championship.
Yeah. It's great to have them options. But at the minute we don't, because they're not fit. And that's the thing when you get people fit. I mean, you look at this team as a whole. Other than Metham, who signed on deadline day, we haven't seen any of them. We've got so many players to come in. We haven't seen Abdullahi, the striker. We haven't seen Samed, the centre midfield player. Who, by the way, the club have started putting all the sort of players who aren't part of the squad, the injured lads and that, they've started chucking them in a box behind the southwest corner. In the last couple of games, Samed was right at the front, starting songs off, banging on the boards. It was Alessia, the Borough game. Samed for this one, there was a box full of kids next to the players, and they were starting songs off, and Samed's joining in with them, and he's clapping it. It was great to see, like. And And I guess it shows, we've signed some good characters. Wilson Isidor, who I'm thrilled that he's hit the ground running because just such a great character. We've still got a lot of players to come into the fold, and we've got a lot of players to come back who've been injured. And this just feels like only the start, really. But it means that the players who are in the team now they've got to solidify their place. And it was a big game for Dan Neil. Massive game. We all know that because he didn't have the best game at the weekend at Watford. He cost us the point with the silly tackle he made. And I thought he actually had quite a good game. I think this possibly was his best game of the season. He didn't do anything spectacular, but the things he's been doing wrong recently, he didn't do in this game. He was winning his duels. He was winning his battles. When he was playing 5 and 10 yard passes, they weren't going straight to the opposition every time, which against Watford, it felt like every pass he played went to a Watford player. I thought he was a lot more assured. He needed a performance like this. I wasn't expecting him to run the show, but I was expecting him to respond a bit like this, just show that he still got it, because he got a hell of a lot of stick last week, and it wasn't fair. He needed a solid 7 out of 10 performance like this. And the game suited him, to be honest, because as it went on, I think Derby, they were quite happy for us to have the ball, and they were sitting in a bit more. And that did suit Dan Neil. So it's good to see him play better, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think he did what was sensible. When players have a little bit of a bad patch, or they kind of make a mistake or something like that, or their form's not quite where they wanted to be, they kind of go back to basics, and that's what he did. He just basically did everything very simply. He just went back to what he does well, but he didn't look for the 40-yard diagonal. He didn't look for that kind of slide rule pass, 20 yards forward. He was sure about everything. Every tackle, he was sure he was going to win. Every ball he passed, he was sure that it was going to get there. And I'd love to see stats, because I think it was one of those nights where he didn't give the ball away all night. It was he just thought, right, I'm going to do everything very simply, very basic, and I'm just going to have like you said, a 7 out of 10 game just to get back on track. And that's what he needed. And when he's like that, he's effective. And we're talking about the midfield who was in with him. I think a few eyebrows were possibly raised about keeping Rig in. I think that was a brave decision. I think a lot of people thought after a performance like that, after, just a bit of a knock, you might want to bring experience in. Brown might come back in for him. People were saying, does Rig need a rest? I was kind of going down that route, if I'm completely honest. I was thinking, pull him out for a game. That's not going to hurt. But it was a brave decision. And, whether it was one of them where the manager asked him, are you up for this still? Or do you need a bit of a rest? Who knows? Or whether he just went, nope, you're not having a rest. You're 17, you should be able to run all that way kind of 3 times a week or whatever it is. He made some big decisions in the middle. I don't think nobody would have raised it as a big one if he'd brought Brown back in. Everyone would have went, no. Fair enough. So, like I said, I think it was a brave one. At home, Rig arguably more attacking. So yeah, I think Neil did what he does well, and I think hopefully that if he does that for a couple of weeks and gets back into it, we'll see Dan Neil really get going this season, because we all know really, he hasn't been great this season, but you don't quite know what went on in the summer or what his expectations were. He hasn't started the season great, but when he does, he's one of the best midfielders in the Championship. It's as simple as that, when he really gets going. And I was saying as well the other day that the beauty of it is we're talking about, and we've talked about it for a long time, that Dan Neil, especially when he moved up the Championship, seemed to have a mistake in him. And he seemed to kind of get rid of that last season to a certain extent. But last season, it was kind of right, well, he needs to iron these things out to get a move to the Premier League. And now, if you look at our squad, he's ironing out these mistakes to stay in the first 11. Yeah, and that's a sign of how far we've come.
Absolutely, it is, and that's look. I'm a big admirer of teams who really pack their squads out with quality, rather because it would be very easy to just have we've got 11 players, give or take, add 1 or 2 to that mix, and that's basically your team all season. Look, we've seen particularly in the Championship, we've seen that when we've done that, come the end of the season, we struggle because of the amount of injuries. You think back to that first season back in the Championship when we went into the playoffs with a back 3. I think it was like Gooch, 09 and Sirkin was a back 3 going into the because we just didn't have the depth, and they've learned from that. I mean, even last season, the amount of injuries. You're looking now, we've got so many injuries now. I just think it's a sign of the times, the intensity of the league we're playing in. It's only going to get more intense. We're only really early into the season. We're going to have lots of injuries, and we've got to have depth. Yeah. But the players have got to act on the proviso that, look, if I don't play well, there's going to be somebody breathing down my neck very soon. Like Samed will be fit after the international break. We've already been told that. I assume he's already training. They're just taking the time with him.
Yeah.
But we've said this so many times. He's not come to Sunderland to sit on the bench. He's come to play.
Yeah.
So Dan Neil's fully aware. It doesn't matter that you're the captain or not. There's a lad here, and he's probably watching him in training and going, freaking hell, he's all right. Like, you know, there's a lad here, and he's here to take my spot. And I've got to show the manager that I'm the man, not him. So, and that goes for pretty much everybody on the pitch. And I think that's why we've seen such a reaction over the sort of the course of the start of the season, really. You know, Jobe, for instance, he talked about it a bit in his interview after the game, where he was talking about how he's had to kind of learn to be a more well-rounded footballer, and he quite enjoyed being a six when we went to Portsmouth. But you've seen his role change, but then the goal he scored, which we will come on to in a bit, but the goal he scored, which was a fantastic goal, we know he's got that in his locker. It's the other side of his game, and he's got to keep it. He's got to be of the mind, well, they've signed Alexic for almost 4 million. We've signed Alan Brown, who's played 400 odd games in the Championship. They've both come to play games. And the same goes for Chris Rigg. On the other side, they know that they've got to perform, otherwise there's people waiting. Isidor, the striker, I mean, Mayenda's been first choice, gets a knock, so can't play. All right, Wilson, you're in. 2 goals. That's exactly what you want. Romain Mundle. Clark leaves, who has just kept him out of the team since he came. And he's made himself undroppable. In my opinion, Romain Mundle is now the most important player in that team. And who would have said that 6 or 7 games ago?
Yep.
This is the reason why I say this team having sustained success this season, because when you've got that level of quality across the pitch, it pushes everyone, it drives everyone. And if someone is crap, well, they're going to get dropped, and you've got a good replacement. It's not like we've had in recent years where we've had a canny player and then we've just had nobody to drop them for. It's a totally different situation. And, you know, with Isidore in particular, I'm looking at him and thinking, well, if Mayenda's fit after the international break, how would you drop him now? He's made himself undroppable. It's great. Like, it's precisely what you want. And I think providing the squad are on board with it, which they seem to be, you know, the player, like I say, you've got players sitting in the stands who obviously they want to be playing, and they're getting involved with the fans, and they look really into it. That's great. And then the other side of the coin, you've got players like Aushish, who's nowhere near the squad anymore. And you've got to think, well, if he's been kicking up a bit of a stink behind the scenes, they've just went, well, we don't need you, so crack on, mate. You know what I mean? Yeah. It is a good place to be. Yeah,
well, I was surprised to see Barr on the bench, actually. So I thought he'd completely gone out of the picture, but it was interesting to see his name on the bench, just mentioning Aushish there. But yeah, and look, I mean, I suppose it's a good chance to come on to the segue into the first goal. You know, in terms of Bellingham, it was interesting because I remember talking after the Borough game, I had him down as my man of the match against Borough, but in a different way. That I thought against Borough, he took up those positions and he picked those passes off, and he was always in the right position. And I said this straight after the game, but then there was a YouTube thing, I think, of showing all his touches of the game. And when he did that, you could see just all of his little, like when he just put a little foot in, and when Borough were thinking they were on a counter-attack, Bellingham was there. And you talked about him changing his game because, you know, last season, Christ, you think back, we played him up front. And I mean, I'd said at the time, you go back then, and I said I didn't think it was fair on the lad to do what we were doing. You know, he wasn't that type of player, and it was almost like, you know, we just had to, abandon his kind of progression just for the sake of having someone up front, and it was a bit of a shame. And then we thought he's going to be in that number 10 role, but when he's come back and he's got the game in front of him and he can see what's going on, you can see how well. I mean, for a lad who's just he's just turned 18,
19.
19,
turned 19 last week, yeah.
Well, you know, I always knock a year off our players because, you know, I always think they're younger than they are.
Basically a pensioner now.
That's it, he's too old, we're going to get rid of him soon. So, you know, he takes up those positions, and, you know, it's interesting to hear that he said that he's had to learn that part, because I think that's his natural position on the pitch, you know, breaking things up, but then having the talent to go on and do something like he did against Derby. And when he can ping the ball from 25 yards in the top corner, I mean, that's what you want him to do. You want him to be that person who can rig the game, pick a pass off, then drive forward and make a chance or score a goal. And it was interesting as well, I was listening to an old Overlap podcast with Neville and all his gang and all that, and when they were talking to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and they were talking about when Man United were trying to get Jude Bellingham, and he was saying that when they talked to him, one of the sticking points, and he said like he knew what he wanted to do, but he said when they talked to Man United, he said he had it all mapped out in terms of year after year, but it was all mapped out in minutes.
Right.
And
okay.
he said that's what the contract was built on, like how many minutes. And he said they talked to him when he was 17, but already then he was like, well, I'm only signing if I get this many minutes next season. And that was his contract. But you imagine the family, if they've gone down that route with Jude, then Jobe Bellingham's going to be exactly the same. So, people have talked about his minutes and, how many that he stayed in the team and all this sort of stuff. But the thing is, again, I mean, you can see all that and that's fantastic. That's great. I mean, that's his pathway. But he's got to back it up. And the thing is now, he's absolutely backing it up. I mean, you're talking about our midfield three. We were talking about potential changes before the Derby game, and people were saying, "Oh, Dan Neil might come out or Chris Rigg coming out." Nobody was saying Bellingham needs to come out because of his form. And yeah. I mean that goal. I mean, just taking it, and it opened up in front of him. Fair enough. I mean, they backed off, but I tell you what. You've got to have the skill, you've got to have the nous about you to take that touch, get it out your feet, and then smash it into the top corner, because the keeper had absolutely... It wasn't them that went through the keeper, if you read Roy Keane's book, keepers being beat from 30 yards and they should never be beaten, all this sort of stuff. When someone hits it like that, there's not many keepers going to stop it.
No, the pace on the strike was ridiculous. From the stands, it almost felt like the goalkeeper had dove at the right time, but it just went straight... he dove past it.
It started off in the middle of the goal and just ended up almost in the side netting.
Yeah. Unbelievable pace on the strike. I mean, to be fair, that's the kind of situation. If you're a player who fancies yourself from that sort of range, situation was perfect for him, because I think it was their number 28, wasn't it? I forget the guy's name, but Chiriwa, I think it was called. But he passed it straight to him. He dispossessed Dan Neil and passed it to him, and then he had the space in front of him to actually adjust himself, get his eyes open, look where I'm going to hit it. But even still, how many times have you seen a player in that situation have all that time, have all that space, put it in row's head? It was a fantastic strike, and he's got that, and he's like I said, he scored not quite the same, but he scored a similar goal last season, didn't he? Against I think it was Plymouth at home
in the near post.
Yeah, where it opened up for him, and he bent that one into the corner.
Yeah. But
he's got that in his locker, and I think as his position becomes more established in the team, you're going to see more of that, because I think he's a very well-rounded midfield player. I feel like now you can play him pretty much anywhere in the midfield and he would be okay. And that, you talk about the minutes he's being given, but I think, I said it last season, I think there's a method to the madness when it comes to Jobe. And I think it's the same case with Rigg now. I think the way the club is now, it's like, we've got to give these lads as many minutes as we can at this early stage, because they'll be better for it. Jobe's a great example of that, because last season there was times where I'm going, friggin' hell, he's way off at him. He looks knackered, he's slow. He doesn't look like he can get into games. His position changed multiple times, but when the net result is, look at him now, look how good he is, you've got to say it worked. And I think there was a method to it. I think there's always been, like you say, maybe they don't do that with every player, but with him, I think there's definitely a plan for how he would shape up over the coming years.
Well, there is, but I think it's driven by him and the way they deal with the two brothers and their pathway and the way they've designed that. Because I actually think if it was a different player last season, then I think you're right. I think at times he would have been pulled out. He would have been given rest at times last season. But now, if you see the result, as you said, it's been a good thing in the long term. But he had to get through those patches last season, and he had to get through that. And once he's on the other side, and you can just see the experience, because he's had so many minutes now. You can see that when he gets the ball, he's got that experience and he's got that confidence to, like I said, get the ball in the middle of the park, 40 yards out, drive forward 15 yards and ping it in the top corner. And that's because he's had so many minutes. So I wasn't saying, by the way, it was a bad thing when I was talking about that kind of pathway. I think we're seeing the end results now, and he's only going to get better. And, with his exposure and goals like that, if we're not in the Premier League next season, it's one of them. It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Speaking of players who might be ready for the Premier League next season, Romain Mundle, for the second goal. I love Romain Mundle. I think he's brilliant. I think, and I've said this a few times recently, but every time I watch him, I just think, God, I think we've replaced Jack Clarke with a better player. I think he's got more about him. Defensively, outstanding. Sirkin wasn't at the races, and Mundle had to be to help him out. He was brilliant. But there's just moments in games where he's got quality. There was a couple of times where he cut inside onto his right foot, where he done his man. The space had opened up for a shot and it didn't quite come off for him. There was that one where I think he just nicked it. He tried to catch the keeper off guard early. But for the second goal, It's a brilliant move. He knows exactly what he's doing. He puts the ball into an excellent space. And Mundle and Isidor done what we've not seen since probably Ross Stewart was at the club, and just makes a brilliant run into a dangerous position. We like that run he made. If you want, I urge people to watch the goal back. Don't focus on Mundle when he's got the ball. Watch Isidor, because his run is outstanding. And it's, be honest, it's 50% quality and it's 50% determination, because he's got a wedge between two defenders just to have half a chance of getting on the end of something. He doesn't know Mundle's going to put the ball there. He's hoping he puts the ball there. And Isidor's run's superb. He goes between the two defenders. He has to really squeeze through to get there. Right place, right time. And that's what good strikers do. That's what top level strikers do. Not sort of League One and Championship strikers, maybe what we've become used to, but top strikers do that.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to see just a proper striker again. And that's no slight on Mayenda, because I think Mayenda's been brilliant. He's just a very different type of striker to Isidor. I don't think Mayenda's your typical 18-yard box poacher, but Isidor is. And he's got other facets to his game as well. He showed it. My big frustration was we didn't get him in the game enough, because when we did, he just looked so up for it. I was thinking, God, get him the ball. You'll get him like 2 or 3, yeah. He was like really hyped up, amped up for it. But that was like the only real half chance he had to score. And like I say, you've got to give full credit to him, full credit to Mundle, because they made the goal happen. And that's not what we've done enough over recent years. And I think it's a good sign that we've managed to get a striker into a game like that. And just a nice, from where I was stood, we weren't sure if it was an own goal or not, but obviously haven't seen the replays back. It's just fantastic forward play, I think.
Yeah. Well, before we get on to that, let's go back a little bit further. It was 09 who started it at the back. And again, we were talking earlier about getting those balls into the midfield and pinging them into somebody's feet. And 09 did that and got it into Jobe's feet. And I think, like, you know, however many was the attendance, 39,000, I think everyone told him to turn. And he did. So, and then when he did that, he got the ball out wide to Mundle. And we did this quickly. And again, like, so the opposition can't get set up. They can't kind of put their banks in. We played through them quickly from the back, 1, 2, 3 up to, and then out wide to Mundle. And then talking about Mundle, I said this, I've probably said this a couple of times on the pod, but I was saying at the time when Clark left, I think Clark is technically a better player than Mundle. I don't think there's any kind of debate there. I think Clark is, he keeps more control of the ball. He's more kind of skillful. He's more technical, but you get more from Mundle I think, in terms of being direct and playing the way we wanted to play. And for a striker, I think Mundle's ideal, because Jack Clark a lot of the time, and I think, I thought he was fantastic. He was fantastic for us, and but he played in a certain way where he got in a position where he bent it into the corner or came into the middle and used the striker's space sometimes by cutting inside. Mundle just has one thought, and he's so direct that he gets the ball and he just goes, well, I'm beating this man, I'm getting the ball in the box. Simple as that. That's on his mind straight away, whether it's a quick cut inside and bending it or whether it's down the line. He's got both in his locker. He can beat a defender either way. And when you've got a fullback, when you're facing up a winger like that, you haven't got a clue, and you don't know which way he's going to go next. And he's just fantastic. And actually, we don't as fans, which is brilliant, because as soon as he picks it up, when he gets the ball like that off a simple pass from a midfielder, you go, brilliant, right? One-on-one with a fullback. And you're kind of already on the edge of your seat, and he's one of those players. And for a striker, like I said, and Mayenda had the shirt, fantastic, and he did really well. But again, we come back to this principle of this squad, where someone misses out they take a little knock or they come out. And I tell you what, if someone, and especially like Isidor, he comes in, and he makes the shirt his own, and now that's it. It's his shirt now. And, people can't take it off him because of the way he's playing until he dips or takes a knock, and that's the way it should be. And I thought his movement, like I said, we've all been impressed with Mayenda, and we've said, there's little things he could maybe improve. But I tell you what, if Isidor is up for it like he was against Derby and every other game, and his movement is that good and that consistent, he's always on the move, he's always looking. And there was a couple of times, and again, in terms of the defenders, he's not obvious in what he's going to do. So sometimes he makes a run and he darts off and then drops off. And sometimes he's on the shoulder and looking in behind. And the defenders don't know where he's going to go next. And for a lone striker, he just looks ideal. And his character looks amazing. And I saw him when he scored the goal. He went to the manager He had a big hug with the manager, and clearly they get on well and they've got a good relationship. And he seems like he's good around the place, going from the interviews with the new signings and all that. He seems like someone you want, and you've seen little clippets on YouTube and that. So, I mean, it's early days. I know it's a season-long loan. But I tell you what, if he stays for a while, I can see him, in a few years' time, we're still talking about him. He's that type of character. And, like we've had some big characters in the past as strikers, and I think he could end up being one of them, especially if he keeps on going like that. But yeah, brilliant goal. The type of goal we want to be scoring, and this is the second or third time we've scored a goal like this, and we haven't seen it for a good couple of years, so it's nice to see. And yeah, it's again we kind of came. We started the second half well, and 10 minutes in, 2-0, and after that, it just looked like game over, really, didn't it? It just became a bit scrappy.
Yeah, and I think we had one eye on, obviously playing on Friday night.
Yeah. And
I think, to be honest, Derby did. They made 4 subs at once, which just told me it was like, okay, let's get these lads off, you know what I mean? But I think we definitely had one eye on the Leeds game, and rightly so, because 3 games in 6 days is a lot. Yep. And we've done a bit of travelling. We've got another home game now, which is nice. And there was no need to go balls to the wall. We were 2-0 up. We just had to see the game out. And it was a pretty professional job. And that's something that the manager praised them for after the game. He said that we were disciplined out of possession as well as in possession, because we had to be. Yeah. I think the game plan was very clear. Win it early, kill it off, get the job done. That's why I felt it was fairly routine, although it wasn't your most outstanding Sunderland performance, and happy days sets us up nicely.
Well, it does, and we'll quickly round off, a couple of minutes, but just in terms of 8 games in, 6th of the season gone, 4 out of 4 wins at home, haven't conceded at home. I mean, just quickly, Gav, from your point of view, none of us really expected this. So where does it put expectations now? I mean, because all of us would have been happy with top 6 at the start of the season, but is it kind of raised now, do you think?
Oh, definitely. Compared to the summer, absolutely. I mean, the expectations have I think so, because the only reason I say that, I think we've got a very ambitious group of players, and maybe if it depends if you're saying whose expectation was it, because I remember even last year when we were playing pretty crap, Jack Clark doing an interview saying that our goal is to get promoted.
Yeah,
like that was their goal even when we weren't as good as this. The players are ambitious. You've just mentioned before about, if we don't get promoted, it will be interesting with Jobe. And we've got a lot of players like that. They don't want to be in the Championship. They know they're better than this. They know they can be even better again. So I think that's part of the reason you build a squad like this. Because it's not like, and this is no offence to Derby, but, you look at their squad, I'm sure they'd all love to play in the Premier League, but if they're being realistic, they're probably looking at it and going, well, this is about my level. Like, I'm a Championship player. And their expectation isn't going to be to get promoted. Whereas for us, we definitely have a few more gears to go through, and I think that's why I think everyone's expectations raised as a result of that. But for me, it's so early in the season that it's like, it's hard to get carried away too much. But if we win against Leeds, we then go 4 points clear at the top of the division going into Saturday, with having beat Leeds and Burnley, who were the 2 favourites early in the season to win the league. That's massive, I think. So it does depend what happens on Friday, to be honest, I think. I'm not saying that's going to define the season as a whole, but I just think from our perspective, if we beat Leeds, I actually think the people will start believing we're onto something here. If they're not already, and I think it would just, if we're being honest, we're just tempering our own expectations because we've never seen a start like this for years.
Yeah,
well,
that's
ever,
what I mean.
Really.
That's why I asked the question. I mean, where does it put it? Because now, I mean, from going from being happy for top 6, we can't now say, we'll be disappointed if we don't win the title from this position, because, there's only 4 points down to 6th place, 5 points down to Sheffield United in 7th, and they've got a game in hand still to play. So it's still kind of, where are we? And we kind of just say, right, from this position, 6th of the season in, we've got to win the league. We've still got to be thinking, with this squad, top 6 is still the aim, and anything else would probably be disappointing. But we can't now be kind of thinking we're going to run away with the title or anything like that, because it's a long season and there's some decent sides up there.
Yeah, and in Burnley, they're in 2nd place now. Like, they've recovered a bit from their slow start.
They'll get going. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like I say, we'll see what happens after Leeds. It'll be interesting, won't it? I know we've not really touched on it too much, but we'll be back after Leeds, which will be fun, hopefully. Talking about, hey, we've got a decent recent record against them. Last season, I think we took 4 points, didn't we? Beat them at the Stadium of Light when Mike Dodds was caretaker manager, didn't we?
Backs to the wall, wasn't it?
Yeah, so let's see. I'm hopeful. I think it's this is the best way to go into that game. I think
it's a good one though. You want these games. Leeds United Friday night. But you're top of the league. They're fourth. It's the type of game you want.
Of course it is. Well, we'll be back after that with another pod, which should be fun. So cheers, mate. Thanks for today. Great. Really love talking about Sunderland wins. Much more fun.
I was going to say, this is brilliant. I can't remember having it like this.
Well, when I recorded after the defeat at the weekend, I wasn't in good fettle. I was a bit hungover as well, to be fair, so my mood wasn't great. But let's see.
Missed that one.
Let's see what happens after Leeds.
I pretended it didn't happen.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for joining us. Cheers to the listeners. Like I say, we'll be back after Leeds. Make sure you catch up with everything on rokereport.sbnation.com. All your written goodness will be on over there. No Friday Night Live this week on Twitter, as we'll all be at the match. So, unless we do it from the match, which I don't fancy doing, that'll not be much fun.
One of them goes to the toilet. No fun at all.
Yeah, well, I did try that theory again, by the way. went for a pee about 15 minutes in, we didn't score. Cheers, mate. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.